One Piece chapter 1170, titled Contrary. And we got Jinbei feeding the Straw Hats some eel bento boxes, that's probably redundant. They got little lunch boxes for the trip. It's a field trip, I guess. I don't know. Whatever Oda was thinking of. Anyway, so the chapter starts up where the last one ended. Loki is fighting the hammer, and we see him getting tossed around for a second, and he doesn't even know who threw the hammer at him. He thinks that there's a person obviously doing it in the room. Okay? And we can see the devil fruit in that box. I wonder why they had such a big box for such a small devil fruit. We're gonna see that later, but yeah, so Loki is still fighting his hammer, and the hammer starts putting pressure into the ground to break the floor. Loki starts running away like a platformer video game, jumping on like rock to rock, trying to reach the top, and he finally did. And we're gonna see him in this chapter actually eat the devil fruit too, but I'm gonna talk about what I think about that later, because before the chapter came out, it's hard to avoid spoilers. So I see a lot of people saying, "Oh no, Loki's Needhog. No, he's Fenrir. No, he might be Slipnir." I didn't want to see anything, but I saw a lot of people talking, unfortunately. So, at the same time Loki's doing this whole thing, trying to get the devil fruit, fighting the Guardian, we obviously have Harold walking him down. Okay, he mentions how the fruit has been laying there for centuries because no one was able to eat it. Okay, and I'll be honest, the fight that Loki's having with this squirrel doesn't seem like some great grandiose thing. Like maybe, okay, maybe I got to say two things here, right? I acknowledge that the hammer has to be extremely strong for Loki to be clashing with it, especially that he's using the color of Supreme King hockey, right? But at the same time, is it just strength that makes the squirrel choose, or the hammer choose who wields it? Because this fight, outside of like the fact that I know they're strong, the fight isn't that impressive. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not that crazy. The hammer isn't, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm overlooking that, the potential of, how much strength the hammer really has. I know it's strong. Again, I'll say that. But the fight, it just seemed like a regular fight. I don't know. But anyway, so Gabon and Shanks pull up. The only two people who knows what happened there that day, outside of Ja Rule, who has a memory problem now. They pull up, and Gabon reiterates what we've been kind of learning this whole time. Hit them with consecutive hits, and they have a extreme weakness against people who can infuse their attacks with the color of the Supreme King. We found that out with Roger and Garp's fight against Rocks, and we've seen it before when Gabon hit Summers earlier, right? We found out all of those things multiple times before, so we're getting a little reiteration here. Okay, so Harold being a giant obviously is no different, right? Even though he's not Dome Reversate either, it's just the fact that they have this regeneration power. So I assume, right, because we've seen it with Dome Reversate Rocks, and Harold isn't technically Dome Reversate, but as I've noticed before, he, and we all noticed, he has a lot of traits that a Dome Reversate person would have. His mind and his body being not in his own control, and the fact that his mind and his words start to become different, even though it's still him speaking like Dorian and Bragi were. They assumed the identity of the red and blue devils that Emu had given them, right? They started acting like those red and blue devils that Emu had just turned them into. Same thing with Harold. He's starting, like he says later, I started to think of myself as a god. His mind is being corrupted as well, okay? So we know that, right? And we know that the Supreme King hockey affects them all the same way, regardless if they're Dome Reversate or not. So Shanks asks Gabon, he asks him, how do you know this? And he says, oh yeah, we fought those guys a whole bunch before when they were trying to come and kidnap you while we were on the crew with Roger and all that. But, we kept beating them black and blue. We whooped their asses is what he said, right? And I guess that's something we all kind of knew, but it's good that Oda is giving us these things, this solid information, so people won't keep speculating into the end of the earth, right? If only he would tell us how strong Sanji is, and people could stop talking shit, right? Or Mihawk for that matter, right? But anyway, so Shanks is talking about how he wants to save Harold, and Gabon already knows that Loki's the only way that's going to happen, okay? So I'll try to speed this up, right? Loki clashes with the hammer. It's revealed to be the squirrel. We all know it will, maybe you don't, maybe you do, but the world tree within the Norse mythology, you know, there's a squirrel that runs along the tree. It's called Ratatoskr, right? The little squirrel, it has electric powers every time I see it appear in any iteration of Norse mythology. So I'm assuming, obviously, this is Ratatoskr, and what is his name? Ragnar? So, yeah, it kind of falls in line, right? So, Loki, obviously, we've seen him just beat the hammer. He's getting the hammer's approval, and he starts to transform into this thing. Now, I know a lot of people, this is what I was going to talk about, right? A lot of people think he's Needhog, right? Because Needhog sleeps at the bottom of the world tree in Norse mythology. He's in the underworld. Same thing as Loki, right? But this roar right here, I'm going to have to research it later. Maybe it's different. You know, I don't speak Japanese, but, you know, I know a little something, and I can research the rest. So I want to know what sound effect he made in the original, right? But whenever I see this is a sound I've seen dogs and other similar beast-like creatures make, okay? If he was a dragon, I don't think we would hear this bow coming from him, okay? Not like bow wow, but you see it, right? So it's like a little bit of a howl. It's like a howl or some sort of a beastly roar. That's when I see it used. So this is why I'm leaning towards more of him not being a dragon, even though a lot of people want him to be a dragon, and it makes perfect sense. I think a lot of them make sense, whether he's Fenrir, whether he's Needhog, or whether he's Skull or Hati. I feel like it all makes a lot of sense, right? So we go back to Harold in the room, laying waste to all of his soldiers, and he sees that Loki ate the fruit. He wants to see his full power, and that he actually got to see it, okay? Because Loki starts whooping his ass. 3 hits, he's out, and we see one of the hits is a giant claw mark shape on his body. Now, a dragon, you know, dragons have claws, dogs have claws. That's not telling us what he is exactly, but I think we should at least know that the claw marks we saw in the throne room that day, or, you know, every other time we see the throne room in the present day, we see claw marks in the wall. We know Loki did that now, without a doubt. That's Loki, okay? He put the claw marks in the walls because he's fighting in there in this beastly form that he has now. And you see how much taller he is than Harold. And when he goes back to normal form, he shrinks. So he's super giant. Harold and him are already the size of like oars. And he got even taller than that. That's kind of crazy. So Harold confirms everything that we knew already. Again, we're getting a lot of characters confirming things that we kind of knew. Loki has the color, the blood of the Supreme King, right? The color of the Supreme King. And I noticed that when Harold went back to his senses in this moment, he came back to his own mind. And it's at the same time that this mark has been destroyed on his arm. Okay, now his body, obviously the mark being destroyed doesn't mean that the connection is completely gone, but I think it disrupts it somehow, obviously, because the mark is destroyed, but his body is still regenerating. But at the same time, because the mark is destroyed, his mind has come back. So the influence is being slightly broken, okay? And he says also what I was saying earlier, that his mind is starting to become his thoughts. His very thoughts were being influenced. He started to think of himself as a god, and it's starting to warp his personality, right? So he doesn't even want to be forgiven for what he's done. He killed too many of his own people. Loki, I think this is why the chapter is my bad. This is why the chapter is titled Contrary, because of Loki, right? And the way he's speaking, you know, everything he's saying is the opposite, kind of like, you know, I'm not going to forgive you. You're the worst. and all that sort of stuff. That's why Harold basically knows exactly what Loki means, and he just responds with, you know, he's basically responding to what Loki is really saying, right? Because even later on here, we're gonna see, he says, "I'll never forgive you for this. How dare you force me to do this?" He says, "I love you too." So he's responding to what Loki is truly saying, because he understands what he's truly saying, even though what he's saying out his own mouth is this: "How dare you? I'll never forgive you. I hate you, you bastard. I love you too." That's his response. So contrary to what he's saying, we know what he was saying, right? So I like that Oda did that, and that also plays into the whole Loki mythos, right? He's the trickster god. He's a contrarian, you know. He tricks you. He got the illusions and all that, you know. He lies a lot. So I'm also thinking that's why he's not going to tell people what really happened here this day. He's going to say, "Yeah, I killed him, so what? Yeah, I did it, and I'll do it again." He's probably talking all sorts of shit, making people think, yo, he really is a monster, like he was when he was younger, right? You know, Loki was doing it his whole childhood. He says, "Yeah, I really am a monster, so what?" And he was just, you know, he was kind of picking that image up that people had, and he was wearing it proudly, even though it wasn't really him. He's going to do the same thing with his father's death. He's going to own that image. He's going to own that idea, even though it's not really him. It's not really what happened. This is Loki's way, right? He's Loki. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this chapter, but I feel like I need to see exactly, I hope Oda doesn't skip a little bit. I need to see exactly what happens after this, like immediately after this. I need to see that. It's a small thing, but like if he just goes back to them saying that's what happened that day, and you know, we're back in the present and Gabon and everybody's there. If he goes back to that, I wouldn't be mad. But I want to see Loki get recaptured. I want to see how that happens, and you know, his words, like why he lets it happen, right? Because there's got to be a reason why he lets it happen, and there's no way Haruden, hearing this whole story, is gonna sit there and let Loki still be chained up. Maybe he's gonna deny the story, but I don't think he would think Gabon is lying, right? Gabon is there. Why would he think Gabon is lying for no reason, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's going to play out because of this. And I think Oda is obviously hiding the truth behind Loki's devil fruit and, like, you know, what it looks like and everything. He's hiding that for when the fight comes back into the present and he's supposed to arrive and fight Emu or Gunko, right? And all the Dome Reverse Giants. But I will make another follow-up video talking about Loki, because I want to talk about that shit. I don't know what this silhouette is. It's like a horse. He has like a horse chest, but at the same time, this is like a Western dragon, right? A Western dragon. So I understand why people say that. You know, not like the serpent, eel-shaped dragon, but you know, the dragon we saw at Punk Hazard type of ordeal, right? But I don't know. Let me know what y'all think in the comments, because that's the end of the video. If Vegapunk's idea about devil fruits are even remotely true, right? That the people who lived on this world or whatever, humans or whatever, had dreams, and the dreams materialized or kind of manifested into their desires, kind of manifested into devil fruits, right? Side note, I have a whole separate video talking about how I think the deeper meaning of the Will of D is how people can materialize their desires and their will. They can materialize their will, because the word haki is in part like energy and, you know, your willpower, your will, right? So I had the whole theory about how when we first saw Gunko appear, Gunko summoned a book that made a gun and a knife. And that's similar to how Nika, Luffy, Joy Boy, pulls goggles out of thin air and a baseball bat out of a tree. Okay, that's not too dissimilar. Two godlike characters materializing and manifesting something that they want on the spot, right? And I kind of connected that to the idea of devil fruits, because I still think devil fruits, obviously, what Vegapunk said is true. So that means people, literally, somebody possibly made devil fruits. Did they make them with hockey? What is hockey? I feel like hockey is more than what we just think it is. Silver Rayleigh told Luffy that all living things have hockey in it. It's life force. So everything has hockey in it. That's your energy. That's your spirit. Your spirit. That's your willpower and your, you know, that's all that sort of shit, right? So where am I going with this, right? I feel like the Will of D, Nika, and Joy Boy, they all have that same connection that Emu has. I feel like the deeper meanings and the deeper connection that hockey has is that ability to like materialize your will. You can make your will real. You can make your will reality. So if devil fruits were created, that would also mean somebody, and I said Nika could have created his own devil fruit. If Nika died and he wanted himself to keep on living, he wanted there to always be a him in the world, he died and his devil fruit was born. Or maybe he died and other people wanted that, right? But that's a side note. So getting into this little ass devil fruit, I feel like humans obviously had to have dreamt of this. If it's this small, it's small enough for a human to consume, and he's holding it in his hand, right? So are the origins of all devil fruits, was it a human that did that shit? I feel like I never imagined that a giant would have a devil fruit in the land of ELBAF that's a human sized. I thought wouldn't you know, if it's a fruit meant for your consumption in your land, they have giant fruits in their land already. Why not a giant devil fruit? But I guess all devil fruits are small, because apparently that would mean the people who dreamt of them first were humans, the weakest species, the ones who needed and wanted more. They wanted to be able to do these things, like, right? Why would a giant need to dream of a devil fruit to make himself giant, right? So all these devil fruits were like possibly dreamt up by humans in the first place for whatever reason. I don't know what, I didn't think that far.